Welcome to ENT student for part 2 discussion on cancer biologically targeted agents. Let us see the hallmarks of cancer.
The hallmarks of cancer. Hanahan and Weinberg described 6 key changes that occur in cancers and which are largely responsible for driving their malignant behavior. This scheme provides a useful way of thinking about the different ways in which cancer can be targeted. However, for individual tumor types, it is becoming clear that some of the processes may represent better targets than others.
So according to this Hanahan and Weinberg, so we have got 6 methods of by the way for the malignant behavior. So this helps in taking up a pathway to prevent the cancer.
The hallmarks of cancer: growth factor independence or self-sufficiency, ability to recruit a dedicated blood supply, avoidance of programmed cell death apoptosis, insensitivity to anti-growth signals, immortalization by reactivation of telomerase, ability to invade adjacent normal tissues and metastasize to distant sites.
The hallmarks according to them are number 1, growth factor independence. They have got independence or self-sufficiency. They can grow by themselves. Number 2, they will recruit a dedicated blood supply. They have their own blood supply. Like a plant needs water, cancer needs blood. Number 3, they have to get away from apoptosis. Apoptosis should not occur for cancer to occur. Number 4, insensitivity to growth signals. They have got no sense for the growth anti-growth signals. So they should not stop the growth, they should have growth, therefore anti-growth should not occur. Number 5 is immortalization by reactivation of telomerase. This telomerase at the end of the chromosome is very important to kill the cell. So immortalization, if the telomerase gets reactivated, the reactivation of the telomerase will not kill. So telomerase will help in a long life. Research is going on this. Number 6, ability to invade the adjacent normal tissue. The invasion, like a king invading an empire, the invasion of the long tissues to the normal tissues and metastasis to the distant sites. Metastasis to the distant sites. These are the 6 key features for a cancer to occur.
Targeted growth factor independence. Growth factor independence can lead to sustained signaling in pathways that control essential biological functions, such as growth, apoptosis, angiogenesis, invasion, and DNA damage repair. Signal transduction can be blocked by monoclonal antibodies that target the extracellular domain of the receptor or by small molecule tyrosine kinase inhibitors that interact with enzymatic activity in the intercellular part of the receptor.
Growth factor in independence. So growth factor, they have got their independence, therefore the cancer is growing like that. It can lead to signaling in pathways. So independence leads to signaling pathways. They control the functions such as number 1, growth, number 2, apoptosis, number 3, angiogenesis, number 4, invasion, number 5, DNA damage and repair. All these things occur because of growth factor independence. Signal transduction. All these signals can be blocked by monoclonal antibodies which we create and target the extracellular domain of the receptor. We have to target the extracellular domain of the receptor which causes the growth. So target the extracellular domain of the receptor or by a small molecule tyrosine kinase inhibitors. These tyrosine kinase inhibitors are very important. Tyrosine kinase inhibitors are very important. They interact with the enzymatic activity in the intracellular part of the receptor. So intracellular part, if the cell is there, so we have seen extracellular domain, intracellular, this is extracellular domain, this is intracellular domain. This tyrosine kinase inhibitor, they block the enzymatic activity in the intracellular aspect. Extracellular domain, you can go for a monoclonal antibody, you can go for a map that can be there. So in this particular picture, we are seeing this. A ligand is binding to the extracellular domain. This is a cell membrane, for example, this is a cell membrane. This is the extracellular domain, one thing is binding, and this is the intracellular domain. So this is extra and this is intracellular domain. Receptors dimerize and the intracellular domains undergo phosphorylation on the tyrosine kinase residues. So externally, so extracellular domains monoclonal antibodies. Intracellular domains, you have got tyrosine kinase inhibitors. So extracellular monoclonal antibodies which we already discussed, intracellular is tyrosine kinase inhibitors. What happens to these receptors that are there extracellular and intracellular domains, they undergo phosphorylation of the tyrosine residues. There is an amino acid called as tyrosine. It undergoes phosphorylation. It undergoes, for example, phosphorylated tyrosine. What happens? This phosphorylated receptor activates the signal transduction pathways. This is the phosphorylation. P is the phosphorylation. It activates the signal transduction. It increases the signal, increases the signal. What does the increase in signal because of phosphorylation leads to? Number 1 is angiogenesis, lot of blood supply. Number 2 is anti-apoptosis. Number 3 is proliferation. Number 4 is DNA repair. Number 5 is gene transcription. Number 6 is invasion. All these things are needed for a cancer to form. These all will lead to a cancer formation. Just only because of phosphorylation of this tyrosine kinase residues, extracellular and intracellular. These two are important concepts which we have to remember.
In this case, binding of the cognate ligand to the specific ligand binding domain on the extracellular component of the growth factor receptor leads to change in the shape of the protein that allow it to form a dimer with identical GFR or with another members of the same receptor family, heterodimer.
So there, in this particular situation, a binding of a ligand, of a cognate ligand to a ligand binding domain on the extracellular, we have seen the extracellular component of the growth factor receptor, so leads to change in the shape of the protein and allows it to form a dimer. So this growth factor receptor, it becomes a dimer, GFR dimer, and with an identical GFR or with another receptor of same family. So this growth factor gets into homodimer or heterodimer. So GFR, for example, let us take GFR is a homodimer. So GFR and XXX, something with which can be a heterodimer. This is a homodimer and this is a heterodimer. Very importantly, you should understand this.
This dimerization process results in intracytoplasmic domains of the adjacent receptors, each adding phosphate groups to tyrosine residues on the other. For this reason, these receptors are known as tyrosine kinase receptors.
So, for example, GFR, growth factor receptor has become a dimer here. That is, dimerization process has occurred, and it leads to intracytoplasmic, within the cell, the domains of adjacent receptors, adding the phosphate groups. These phosphate groups are being added, as we have seen already. Phosphate, for example, tyrosine plus phosphate is added, and tyrosine residues added phosphate. For this reason, these are known as tyrosine kinase receptors. So cancer receptors, especially known as tyrosine kinase receptors, very important to be kept in mind.
Phosphorylation of tyrosine residues in the tails of the receptors leads to cascade of signals via so-called secondary messengers, such that the binding of a protein on the cell surface is able to influence the behavior of the cell. Under normal circumstances, activation of growth factor receptors is very tightly controlled, as is the synthesis and release of the ligands that bind to them. The signaling pathway is normally responsible for regulating physiological cellular processes such as epithelial tissue development and response to injury.
As we could see, important event in this is the phosphorylation of the tyrosine residues in the tails of the receptor leads to cascade of signals, so-called secondary messengers. Then form the secondary messengers will be forming and binding of the protein on the cell surface, able to influence the behavior of the cell. So you should think that, for example, growth factor receptor, a dimer is formed, and then later on leading to formation of tyrosine plus phosphorylation, later on leading to secondary messengers, later on leading to change in the behavior of the cell. This is all the cascade that is occurring. Under normal circumstances, the activation of growth factor receptors is tightly controlled. If this control is lost, the release of ligands that bind to them based on as is the synthesis of the release. Control is there, number synthesis of the factors is also in a controlled fashion. The signal pathway is normally responsible. In normal cells, it is responsible for regulation of the physiological cellular processes. Number 1, like epithelial tissue development and response to injury. For example, normal skin epithelium is formed by this, and then response to injury is also based on that only. So the processes that are occurring not in a cancerous patient, normal patients, is that epithelial tissue development and response to injury. Even that also takes the pathway of phosphorylation of the tyrosine kinase only.
One extremely important family of GFR is represented by the CERB receptors of the transmembrane type 1 receptor tyrosine kinase family. This family comprises four members: the epidermal growth factor receptor or CERB-B1, CERB2, CERB3 and CERB-B4. They consist of a large glycosylated extracellular ligand binding domain, a hydrophobic transmembrane component and an intracellular domain with tyrosine kinase activity.
So if we take these growth factor receptors, one of the important example is CERB receptors. CERB receptors very important. They are of transmembrane. They are from membrane from inside to outside, having an intracellular domain and an extracellular domain. This is the intracellular domain. This is the extracellular domain. This family has got very importantly the EGFR, that is epidermal growth factor receptors. That is the other name for is CERB1. So CERB1 is epidermal growth factor receptor, CERB2, CERB3, CERB4. These are the four important things. They consist of, what do they consist of? They consist of glycosylated extracellular ligand binding domain. It is a glycosylated extracellular. Whatever the extracellular domain is there, that is a glycosylated one. Extracellular domain is a glycosylated one. Glycosylated one. And internally a hydrophobic transmembrane component. A hydrophobic, this particular part, transmembrane component is a hydrophobic one. External is glycosylated, transmembrane component is a hydrophobic one. Hydrophobic one is a hydrophobic one. And an intracellular component with tyrosine kinase activity. Intracellular component, intracellular is tyrosine kinase activity. Tyrosine kinase activity. So extracellular is glycosylated, transmembrane is hydrophobic. Transmembrane is hydrophobic and intracellular is tyrosine kinase activity.
CERB receptor family. One extremely important family of GFR is represented by CERB receptors of transmembrane type 1 tyrosine kinase family. This family comprises four members: epidermal growth factor receptor EGFR or CERB-B1, CERB-B2 or mu or HER2, CERB-B3 or HER3, CERB-B4 or HER4.
So as we have seen already, the CERB family, number one is epidermal growth factor receptor, number two is CERB HER2 new, especially important in breast cancers, number three is CERB3 or HER3, number four is CERB-B4 or HER4. These are the four types of receptors that are there. So there are four members in this. So CERB receptor, once again having a recollection, so it has got intracellular domain and extracellular domain and transmembrane domain. So intracellular domain is a tyrosine kinase domain, and as you should know, this the extracellular domain is here, and then this is the hydrophobic one which is there in the transmembrane region.
They consist of a large glycosylated extracellular ligand binding domain, a hydrophobic transmembrane component and an intracellular domain with tyrosine kinase activity. Head and neck cancer cells very frequently 90% observe normal EGFR mediated signaling pathways. By doing so, they are able to gain a growth and survival advantage over neighboring normal cells.
So once again the same thing we are trying to repeat: intracellular domain, transmembrane domain, extracellular domain. Intracellular domain tyrosine kinase activity, transmembrane hydrophobic activity, and extracellular domain is a glycosylated one. Extracellular is a glycosylated one, hydrophobic is a transmembrane one, and intracellular is tyrosine kinase. Why I am trying to repeat this many times is, most of our head and neck cancers, they observe EGFR mediated signaling pathways. They come for EGFR most commonly, 90%, that is CERB1 only. CERB1 very importantly, EGFR signaling pathways. By doing so, they gain growth and survival advantage over the neighboring normal cells. Very important.
Cancer cells exploit three main strategies for achieving self-sufficiency in growth factors. They manufacture and release growth factors which stimulate their own receptors, autocrine signaling, and those of their immediate neighbors, paracrine signaling.
So what are the exploitations done by these cancer cells? What are the strategies for these cancer cells in growth factors? Is autocrine signaling and paracrine signaling. So release and manufacture and release of growth factors on their own receptors, on their self. Number one, it is like a selfie. And paracrine is by immediate neighbors. It is like a groupie that is done by someone else.
They alter the number, structure, function of the growth factor receptor on their surface. such that they are more likely to send a growth signal to the nucleus even in the absence of the cognate ligand.
So alteration of number one, number two is structure, number three is function. Number, structure and function of a growth factor receptor. The growth factor receptors, these growth factor receptors are altered. The lecture is going on growth factor receptor, growth factor receptor, growth factor receptor. They send a growth signal to the nucleus even in the absence of a cognate ligand. Even in the absence of a cognate ligand, they send a growth signal to the nucleus. From outside to inside, they can send a signal to the nucleus so that it proliferates.
They deregulate the signaling pathway downstream of the growth factor receptor so that it is permanently turned on, constitutively active.
Deregulation of the signal. For example, a train is going on fast, very fast. A signal, red signal is there. Instead of this red signal is getting damaged. The train moves on with the same speed. The same thing is going to happen. So instead of downstreaming the growth factor receptor, it is permanently turned on. That is, green signal is permanently there. Therefore, it is called as constitutively active. This leads to accident called as cancer. Okay, very simple to understand.
Squamous cell cancer of head and neck is probably the most clearly described example of EGFR-driven oncogenesis because this is the dominant signaling pathway responsible for the malignant features of the disease, and overexpression has shown to correlate with poor survival.
So once again we are dealing with epidermal growth factor receptor. What is squamous? Squamous cell is nothing but skin, is nothing but your epidermis. So epidermal growth factor receptor. The name is very simple. So squamous cell carcinoma head and neck is the most clearly described example of EGFR derived oncogenesis. The dominant signaling pathway for malignant features of the disease is EGFR. You have to remember that. And overexpression is also leading to poor survival. More amount of EGFR, less survival. It is indirectly proportional. So EGFR is more means is the worst cancer.
Currently, 12 major ligands with a shared EGF like motif and affinity for the family of CERBB receptors are known. The consequences of receptor dimerization and activation and subsequent intracellular signaling provide mechanistic explanations for many of the features that characterize head and neck cancers.
In this EGFR nowadays, till now, the 12 major ligands share the EGFR motif and they are like CERB receptors or no, they are research wise proved. The consequence of receptor, we have seen that receptor dimerization, growth factor receptor like a dimer formation as we have seen like that, and they provide subsequent intracellular signaling. Signaling is improved, for green signal is given. They provide the mechanistic explanation for many of the cancers.
EGFR. EGFR is 170 kDa protein and the founding member of the receptor family. In contrast to certain tumor types where EGFR gene amplification or mutation is implicated, overexpression of the receptor without gene amplification appears to be the dominant process in squamous cell cancer of head and neck.
Once again, dealing about this epidermal growth factor receptors, 170 kilodalton protein in the member of the receptor family, especially for the squamous cell carcinomas of the head and neck. In contrast to certain tumor types where EGFR amplification, number one, there can be amplification, number two, there can be a mutation, or number three, there can be an overexpression of a receptor, number four, without gene amplification appears to be a dominant process in the squamous cell carcinoma. So amplification can occur, mutation can occur, or overexpression of the receptor. Even the receptor itself can form a damage, can cause a damage even without gene amplification. The receptor is receiving, for example, a person is having lot of hunger, so he becomes obese. The same concept, the receptor itself is pulling lot of epidermal growth factors and then it is leading to cancer.
Elevated levels of EGFR mRNA and protein and of the ligand transforming growth factor alpha are present in normal mucosa several centimeters from a malignant lesion.
So for example, if you take a malignant lesion like this, not only in this lesion, even several centimeters distance also this EGFR is found. That is the importance of this EGFR. So EGFR mRNA and protein of the ligand transforming growth factor alpha. So this EGFR along with TGF alpha, these two are very important. We have to keep in mind about the cancer oncogenesis in the squamous cell carcinoma. Even in normal lesions also they can be found, even in normal mucosa. Even in the normal mucosa also they can be found.
TGF alpha upregulation is also detectable in pre-invasive lesions and mild dysplasia, consistent with the theory of field cancerization due to exposure to environmental chemical carcinogens. Upregulation of EGFR is significant early event in the progression from pre-invasive mucosal dysplasia to invasive head and neck cancer and is most marked in lesion displaying greater dysplasia.
As we could see, this TGF alpha, as we have seen already, EGFR along with the TGF alpha. TGF alpha, very important here, it is upregulating the detectable pre-invasive lesions. What is this helping in field cancerization? So in oral cavity, for example, there is a tongue cancer, you can also find base of the tongue cancer, or if there is a tongue cancer, you can find the oral cancer, like buccal cancer. When they are exposed to chemical carcinogens, this TGF alpha and EGFR, they are acting together, and then this is a clearly notified thing in the case of pre-invasive mucosal dysplasia. Mucosal dysplasia, that is early stage to invasive head and neck cancer, and is more marked in the lesions displaying greater dysplasia. So dysplasia is proportional to this EGFR. So don't forget EGFR and TGF alpha.
Several studies have shown links between EGFR overexpression and head and neck cancer oncogenesis and progression. In an experimental xenograft model where highly metastatic sublines were isolated by in vivo selection from nodal metastasis, EGFR was of only 33 differentially expressed genes, showing a two-fold upregulation.
So as you could see, even in this head and neck cancer, oncogenesis and progression, it helps in oncogenesis number 1, helps in progression. This is EGFR overexpression. And we could see in the experiments also, even in the nodal metastasis, we could see 1 out of only 33 differentially expressive genes, you could see that there is a double upregulation of this EGFR. So EGFR is that important.
A mutated version of EGFR, EGFR-V3, is the most common of 7 known variants of EGFR.
EGFR 8.
EGFR8 is the most common of 7 known variants of EGFR. Deletion of exons 2 to 7 of the EGFR gene results in a truncated extracellular domain and constitutive activation of intracellular tyrosine kinase, which continuously triggers multiple downstream phosphorylation cascades.
So as we have seen, so these are all CERB receptor, once again intracellular domain with the tyrosine kinase activity, and transmembrane, which is a hydrophobic activity, and extracellular domain, which is a glycosylated one. Among these, for example, if you take, there are nearly 7 known varieties of variants of EGFR, of which EGFR 8 Roman number 8 is one of the most common one. Deletions of exons of 2 to 7 of EGFR of this particular gene results in truncated extracellular domain. That means it is ready to accept. This extracellular domain becomes truncated and it accepts the things from outside, and the intracellular domain, this tyrosine kinase intracellular domain, continuously triggers the downstream phosphorylation. So phosphates are added, phosphorylation, many times phosphates are added, and it becomes a cascade and becomes a cancer. This tyrosine kinase phosphorylation becomes a cancer.
EGFR8 can associate with and activate wild-type EGFR in the absence of ligand. This particular mutation is common in tumor types such as glioblastoma multiforme, non-small cell lung cancer, and has recently been reported to present in 42% of head and neck cancers.
So as we could see, this is very important. Activate the wild type of EGFR even in the absence of a ligand. Ligand need not be there for this. A particular mutation which is helpful for dangerous tumors like glioblastoma multiforme, non-small cell cancer, and 42% of head and neck cancers. 42% of head and neck cancers has these things. EGFR8.
CERBV2. The CERBV2 receptor is a 185kDa receptor like phosphoglycoprotein with no known exogenous ligand. When highly overexpressed, it may spontaneously dimerize and autoactivate, but it is more frequently activated by heterodimerization with other ERBB receptors.
So EGFR is CERB1. CERB1 we have discussed a lot till now. Now it is CERB2. It is a 185 kilodalton receptor like phosphoglycoprotein with no known exogenous ligand. Outside ligand is not there for this CRP2. It can spontaneously dimerize and auto-activate and frequently associated with heterodimerization. So if we, for example, growth factor receptor mixes with growth factor receptors, it is called as homodimerization. Growth factor receptors with XXS, it is called as heterodimerization. So till now we have given the introduction of CERB1, CERB2, CERB3, CERB4. We will continue in the next class for the rest of the CERB receptors. Thank you very much for watching ENT student.